Fall is all about cozy comforts, but when you're prioritizing your health, it's easy to feel like you're missing out. With Hero Bread, you can enjoy all your fall favorites because they're made with Hero Bread sliced bread loaves, tortillas, bagels, dinner rolls, and more. Try their all-new Hero Noodles with 12 grams of protein and just 80 calories. You won't believe Hero Bread's options have 0 to 5 grams net carbs and are high fiber from the taste and texture. They've even got small batch drops of indulgent favorites like the popular Hero Croissant. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at hero.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains 2 to 18 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
2013 has begun. Is it good already?
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to start the year with a clean sheet, wasn't it, Ed? You picked a heck of a week to stop predicting clean sheets.
Yeah, made big fuss about that one, didn't I, in last week's predictions and what happens to clean sheets. I told you Fergie listens to the show, and just to spite me, he's gone, let's get a bit more defensive this week, because actually United were a little bit more defensive, I thought, especially at West Brom. Game felt like it petered out in the second half, and almost as if United were concentrating on that clean sheet.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously he has worked the team in that regard. I mean, 2 absolutely excellent performances from United since we last spoke.
Yeah, very much so, I thought. Yeah, Wigan, really superb. West Brom, excellent for the first hour, shall we say. Really controlled the game and the tempo, especially through that first half. So much possession, perhaps just missing a little bit of penetration at times. And then Wigan, just a superb performance all round. Martinez said it was one-sided, and it very much was. And some brilliant goals to boot. And I think Fergie, having said before the hand that United, with a real shout, they can stop conceding goals. Having made the point that United couldn't keep conceding goals and keep coming back all the time the week before, it really, he really got his team together and concentrating, and it felt like there was just something better about the defensive display and the shape, and I think Tom Cleverley helps a lot there, and he really does add some energy to the midfield. But West Brom, I mean, we said last week it was going to be a really tough game for United, didn't we? And it just didn't turn out to be the case.
No, they really under-delivered, I thought, but there's a couple of things. I said 2 excellent performances. Obviously, really, it's 1 excellent performance and a decent performance. The West Brom game was a weird one, and part of the reason for that was the pitch. It was like an old-school United at Christmas. Remember when the Old Trafford pitch was just absolutely awful all the way through the winter? It was really boggy and muddy just because the weather conditions had been so bad, and there was pitch inspection before the match and all that sort of thing, and the ball really was sticking, wasn't it, when it moved? But West Brom did look like they maybe a bit overawed by the occasion, and I do think that it was similar in the Wigan game, but the Christmas period, we always sort of cite what an important time it is, and there's such huge games and makes so much difference to the title race. But for the smaller teams, it's an absolute nightmare because we've rotated heavily during this period. 5 changes for the West Brom game, a number of changes for the Wigan game as well. Just so many options for Ferguson, and West Brom and Wigan don't have that luxury, so I think they were just really tired as much as anything else.
Yeah, I think you're a really good point there, and of course we saw Newcastle really collapse against Arsenal, who had an extra bit of breathing space, didn't they? I think it's a strategic advantage for the bigger teams who've got the bigger squads, having so many games at Christmas. And the irony about that is that some of the bigger teams would prefer to have a winter break. Ferguson said this many times, and the smaller teams don't because they want the gates around the Christmas and New Year period. So I think it works against them in that respect. And 4 games in 9 days is an awful lot if you can't rotate. And I thought Ferguson did it pretty smartly. We've seen times in the past when United have rotated 6, 7, 8 players at a time, and it's really damaged the coherence of the side, and that didn't feel like it happened over Christmas. Really great period for United. I mean, Swansea draw aside in a game that United should have won. 3 wins and a draw is excellent. Okay, the gap hasn't changed, has it, to City? City also performed pretty well over the Christmas period. Equally easy win against Stoke and solid victory at Norwich for City. But 7 points into the new year is more than anyone could have expected at the beginning of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the West Brom game, Shinji came back and it was really exciting. That boy looks magic, doesn't he?
Look, just read the signals from Ferguson. Whatever he says, it's the opposite. So he made a big point in his press conference about Kagawa not really being ready, and maybe he'd put him on the bench, just depended on how fit everyone else was, kind of suggested that only in an emergency would it happen. And of course, that had "I'm going to start Shinji" written all over it, didn't it? And he did, and it's great to see him back. And of course he came on against Wigan and very much played in a midfield position. So, but there's loads more to come from him. It depends on how long Rooney's out for, of course, whether we'll see much more of Kagawa in the next couple of months, and certainly towards the back end of the season. It's that old thing that we've talked about quite a few times now about where's he going to play, and I suspect he's going to end up being an impact sub and being rotated, and Rooney and Van Persie will be the front two of choice in the biggest games, which you kind of expect.
Yeah, absolutely, but Kagawa offers so much, doesn't he, as an option. Linked up really well with Chicharito in the West Brom game, Kagawa did. The number of plan Bs and Cs and Ds we've got up front is just phenomenal. Talking of letters, the boy is a magician. RVP came on, strolled onto the field against West Brom just after Danny Welbeck had done really well, had a good opportunity, and the keeper had managed to get a hand to it. RVP comes on, it's like, no, listen, Danny, what you got to do is you've got to make it absolutely physically impossible for their goalkeeper to save it, and just scored a belter against West Brom, and then another fantastic performance against Wigan from a man who is swiftly endearing himself. Well, he basically has endeared himself in the hearts of United fans up and down, well, all around the world. It's the first Rankcast of 2013, so we have asked a few people face to face when we got the chance to meet up with them, what they were most looking forward to in 2013 and what they'd most enjoyed about 2012. And I also asked the listeners on Twitter this, and RVP comes up time and time and time again about things he most enjoyed about 2012, and he's just had a phenomenal Christmas period, hasn't he?
Really has. Two absolutely blinding goals we can talk about there. Cut inside against West Brom and lashed it into the corner. No chance for the keeper. And the subtle side of Van Persie for one of his goals against Wigan. Switched from the left to the right foot. Didn't panic at all. Straight into the net. Didn't look to hit it too hard. Really no backlift as such. And beat the keeper by passing it into the net. And he can do both. He's, as Ferguson said, the complete footballer at the moment. At this rate, you'd probably back him to be Footballer of the Year again, retain his crown there. He's got, 19 goals for United already, so he's on course at, turn of the year to match his 30-odd from last season, or, get close to it anyway. And we talked about this when we met up over Christmas, didn't we? That's the difference that a really high-class player can make, and United have brought in not that type of player for the most part over the last few years, and filled out the squad and hoped that some of the younger players would develop into that type of player. Van Persie's the finished product, best striker in the Premier League by some distance at the moment, I'd say.
Keeping up with him, goal tally-wise at least, in that game against Wigan was Chicharito, who's really... I actually don't think the two of them work as well as some of other attacking combinations together, which is a ridiculous thing to say just after they've scored 4 goals between the two of them. But I think sometimes they get quite separated and we lose a bit because Cheech plays so high up and Robin drops a lot deeper, and I love seeing Van Persie in and around the box. But they combined to excellent effect, actually, against Wigan. And Chicharito is kind of ridiculously instinctive. For the goal from the Van Persie free kick where it sort of bobbles around and Chicharito just sticks a leg out, but not in a kind of lucky way, just in an incredibly pure moment of instinct. And basically, no one else in the box knows what's happening with the ball until he's put it in the back of the net. He knew he's tracking that. He's like a predator of some kind, like a lynx or a panther or something. He just likes goals a lot, doesn't he?
He really does, and in that aspect, United were a bit fortunate with some of the goals. I think 3 of the goals against Wigan took a bounce off a player somewhere, and United got a lucky break. But the class and the quality of finishing was absolutely outstanding, I thought, and that's what Hernandez is all about. He's improved his game, though, definitely from last year. His first touch is better. We've always talked about his attacking movement, and he really is great playing on the last shoulder of the defender and making those diagonal runs, and his movement around the box is... It's not by accident that the ball finds him in the box. One of the things that really annoyed me about his play before was when he came deep, and he seemed to break up the pattern of the play by coming too deep, facing the wrong way, and it just wasn't good. And he's actually improved that aspect of his game as well. And I think he's definitely maturing as a player. It's still really difficult for him to get a lot of game time, but he is getting game time, and Welbeck's suffering as a result, I suppose. At least Welbeck's suffering for playing in the position he wants to. Although against West Brom he did start, and he wasn't particularly good.
And talking of Chicharito's all-round game, over the Christmas period where we didn't meet up with a few people, it was extremely nice to meet Musa Okwonga, Manchester United's poet laureate. That's an unofficial title, but it's well deserved. You can find him on the internet at okwonga.com and follow him at Okwonga, and he had this to say about 2012 and 2013.
I'm here with Musa.
Broadcasting live.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location in Soho. So as we're here, we thought that we'd take the opportunity to ask, what was your very favourite footballing moment of 2012? United related, ideally, but doesn't have to be.
Do you know what it was, actually? In a kind of cheesy way, I think it was either Hernandez against Braga, the amazing performance when he came back and basically was a fantastic playmaker and set up the 3-2 win. Or in a funny way, it was Van Persie apologising after missing the penalty against Southampton, having scored a hat-trick, because in a way, looking back, that showed he was a real United player. He really cared about the club, and despite scoring a hat-trick, he was like, I let my teammates down. And that, to me, has set the foundation for so much which has followed since then.
And so I guess the follow-on question is, what are you most looking forward to out of United in 2013?
I'm really looking forward to Anderson returning. I can't wait for that. I think he's a fantastic player. Raphael coming back. I'm really looking forward to Valencia regaining form, because I love the way that Ferguson kept so much faith in his wingers. He's kept playing young has played back into form. You've got Valencia out of form now, but still working very hard. I'm looking forward to that. And I really think that we've got a good chance of doing something exciting in the league, but also in Europe if we're lucky.
Extremely good to hear from Musa, and was very nice to meet him as well. And he was responsible for one of my 2012 highlights, two of them actually. It was a poem about Gary Neville and a poem about Eric Cantona's collar. If you told me that they were going to be two of my highlights of 2012 before the year started, I would have pshaw in your face. So yeah, you mentioned Danny Welbeck. Not a great game, but it is very difficult, and his position in the squad is very difficult to assess, isn't it?
He's really unlucky, of course, because Van Persie's come in and taken a lot of game time away, and we had high praise for Welbeck, of course, last season. The partnership he developed with Rooney and the fact that he seemed to be turning into an all-round player, and he had a really good Euro 2012 with England, but he just can't get the game time at the moment. It's disrupted his rhythm, and his finishing isn't very good at the moment, and I think the movement's not quite as good either, and his physical presence that he's got is one thing, but there needs to be more to his game than that, and he kind of had it last season and doesn't this. And what's he got now? One goal in 20-something appearances this season, or his last 20-something appearances, sorry. It's really tough because, that kind of goal ratio is not going to get him a game in the side very often, is it? When Ferguson has talked so often about scoring goals and how important that is this season. So it's a really tough position for him at the moment. He's definitely fourth choice. He'll at least stay that because Angelo Henriquez has gone off to Wigan. He's not under threat from one of the youngsters for that fourth place spot, I suppose. But it's tough for him. But hey, look, he's young. He's got time to develop. I have lots of faith in his ability. Whether he'll ever be of the kind of class of Rooney and Van Persie is another thing, of course, but he's still got lots of value to add to United's squad, just tough for him.
Yeah, and at the other end of the age spectrum, a player I think worthy of positive mention, given he's come in for a reasonable amount of criticism, a very reasonable criticism as well, I think, from many United fans. An absolutely excellent Christmas campaign from Ryan Giggs. A wonderful performance against West Bromwich from the left of midfield. Very impressive against Swansea. Really good cameo in the Newcastle game. Just all-round big contribution made by Giggsy.
Yeah, right, and played the full game against Wigan
what I meant,
as well.
Rather than West Brom, yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, great contribution for a man of his age. Of course, it's gonna be really tough to say that he could keep doing that, because the history of the last couple of years' performances from Ryan Giggs and of course his age say that probably won't happen. I know Ferguson will rotate for the West Ham game, so he could well end up playing that one as well, because Fergie wants to keep all his key players as fit and fresh as possible. So we'll see. Nice to see him playing well though. Maybe a very, very late Indian summer.
That's the thing. It's not so much whether or not he can keep doing it. It's that I really wasn't even sure whether it would ever happen again. So it was nice to see that actually, he has rediscovered some form, and playing him on the left of midfield, he just works sort of much better than when he plays in the middle. And Patrice, the nature of the way Patrice plays the game means he's never on his own when he's attacking, and there's loads of energy and pace added to the attack down the left-hand side anyway. Ashley Young, also a really fine Christmas campaign, just, another player that came in for massive stick. And apart from his ongoing tendency to be shot by the opposition whenever they breeze past him, he's really contributed a lot and been excellent, very lively, really good movements and very decent passing, and worthy of praise, I think, given how much stick he got.
Yeah, and when he contributes in an attacking sense, he's got plenty to contribute. Young, I don't think anyone will ever say that he's in the same kind of class as some of United's other players. But yeah, he had a good Christmas period. For once, a mediocre English player that Liverpool has not bought. Sorry, that's cruel.
That is mean. They love it, don't they?
So after West Brom and Wigan, that was the turn of the year, I suppose, and as Paul said, we spoke to a few friends over the Christmas period. You've heard from Musa. We also spoke to Awate, and this was his thoughts on his favourite moment from 2012 and the year ahead.
I'm here with original friend of the show, Awate. What was your 2012 highlight?
My highlight of 2012 was when we sold the G-Bomb, Darren Gibson, to Everton for a nominal fee, and it was part of Fergie's plan for us to win the league, because the day that Ravel Morrison left, I was in tears. No, I wasn't really in tears. I was really, really upset about that one. That one hurt me. But Paul Pogba came on. The match was against Stoke, right, on transfer deadline day. And Paul Pogba came on. I was like, see what happens when you work hard. Look, Paul Pogba's staying with us forever. But I remember watching that match at my mate's house, really upset because Ravel Morrison left. But City were playing Everton. And I was watching United match. I wasn't watching the City one. I don't have two screens. I was just watching the United v Stoke match. And for some reason, the stadium started erupting into a song I've never heard before. And it seemed like they were singing One Darren Gibson. And I was so confused until I realised, 1 minute, that can only mean one thing. Aren't City playing Everton? Holy crap, Darren Gibson scored. Fergie's a genius. He's masterminded the whole thing. Fergie knew that was going to happen.
All right, so what could possibly live up to that in 2013?
Winning the Champions League is going to be brilliant this year. I can't wait for it. All right, I'm going to say, we're going to batter Real Madrid. We've got a way better team than them. Think about it this way. We are Man United. We have the history of United. And we've got the two best strikers in the world. We're going to outgun people.
Great to hear from Awate, and we also asked the same question on Twitter, and a number of you have written in, and here are some of your comments.
At Chian Landog says, the Gilluminati is obviously the best thing about 2012. Good shout, although they might have paid him to say that. At the Aardvark man says, the Felix Baumgartner dive was pretty classy. Yes, good point. At Mier to 23, our friend Marta says, I bet everyone will say this, but beating City when Paul Scholes came back to, brackets, almost save us on the same day was amazing, and it certainly was amazing. Lots of people talking about that. And, of course, loads and loads and loads of people citing RVP and the difference that he's made to the side, so that's brilliant. In terms of things that people are looking forward to in 2013, at Ammon Palman says he's very much looking forward to more hilarious tweets from at MUFC_Facebook. However, I love Christmas. Yeah, fair enough. I'm also looking forward to those things. Loads and loads and loads and loads of people have said that their highlight of 2012 was finding the Rentcast, so that's absolutely awesome. I'm really glad that you've enjoyed it.
Brown noses.
At Bree Red Ant says, Johnny, Lionel Messi, Evans and Raphael. Yeah, both incredibly impressive this season. I've really enjoyed the fact that Evra's turned into this goal-scoring machine too. That's pretty cool. At Will Lum says, looking forward to the Madrid tie, the home leg in particular, and more ORVP. And a lot of people mentioning that Madrid tie too. Mostly, more than anything else, people saying what they're looking forward to in 2013 is Manchester United winning title number 20.
Got to have a lot of confidence at the moment, haven't you? I mean, I think my prediction at the start of the season was that City would retain their title. It's hard to hold to that prediction now, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. 7-point lead isn't as good as United's lead last season, but it's looking pretty good. And this is without United really hitting massively top form. And you kind of expect through the spring that United would get even stronger, especially if we can sort out some of the injury problems, which appears to be the case. It seems like Nani aside, pretty much everyone in the squad is fit, and Rooney to come back very shortly too.
We also spoke to someone that mentioned the Rantcast being one of their favourite discoveries of 2012. We met with our friend Liz Worsley.
We're here with official friend of the show, Liz. So, Liz, I've been asking everyone favourite moment of 2012.
Okay, I'm really sorry, it's very obvious, but it's got to be Van Persie against City, probably because I've got the memory of a goldfish, so I can only remember a few weeks back. But I was in a pub in London, I'd moved down here recently, and I was surrounded by people who hated Van Persie, because I was in Islington, and it's obviously an Arsenal territory. So when City equalised, they were all taunting Van Persie. There was only me and my brother there, and we were just really desperate to hold on for a draw at the time. And then I just couldn't believe my eyes when he scored, and I just jumped up and was screaming and made a fool of myself in the middle of this pub. It felt like we got a piece of our dominance back again, because I feel like the last 2 years it's all shifted towards City again, and they've been really, really dominant at the Etihad as well. So it just felt like such a powerful victory.
I love it. It might be obvious, but it's absolutely beautiful. So, 2013, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to us getting the league back, definitely. Another obvious answer. I'm really hoping that we're going to go far in Europe as well, although I can't really see how we're going to get past Real Madrid with our defence at the moment. And I'm hoping that Cleverley is going to really develop, and Kagawa as well. I'd love to see those two do really well, because I presume we're not going to get anyone in January. So I'd love to see Cleverley develop.
And lovely to meet Liz over the Christmas period, fine purveyor of football cartoons.
And a fine purveyor of football writing is at Doron Salaman, who was also there and had this to say about 2012 and 2013.
I'm here with Doron, friend of the show, I think it's fair to say. Your favourite moment of 2012, United-wise, and you can throw in football in general if you want to.
Well, it's a really tough one. I think from my point of view, it's probably related to youth. I think I really enjoyed watching the Youth Cup run at the start of 2012. The under-18s got to the semi-finals of the Youth Cup, and it was a really young side at the time. The likes of Matt Starley, Adnan Januzaj, Ben Pearson were all kind of doing their thing at the time. And you got to watch them growing up as the campaign went on, and ultimately they lost to a really, really good Chelsea side who went on to win the competition. But as the years gone on, we've been able to watch them grow as part. They're still all under 18s, so we've been able to watch them grow as part of the under 18s, as part of the academy. And despite FA Youth Cup disappointment against Burnley and disappointment in Singapore as well, they lost to Sporting Lisbon in a competition out there. I think we've seen some really good stuff from them. From the first team point of view, it's got to be Van Persie. You can't look beyond him. I mean, I'm happy to say I was really, really not disappointed, but underwhelmed by his signings. I wanted a central midfielder, but the guy is pure class.
What are you most, and talking of Van Persie, which I think is probably going to be quite a common answer to this question, but what are you most looking forward to in 2013?
Oddly enough, it's not Van Persie, it's Kagawa. Of the new signings, he was the one that really got to me. I mean, I was so excited by him because I thought he was the player we really needed, and at Dortmund he'd been so good. And it's just a case of him finding his place in the side and us understanding what he's all about. And I think, given his injuries, given the fact he's taken some time to bed into the squad, I think 2013 will be all about him, and ultimately him leading us to glory, along with Robin and Rooney and everyone else.
Very good. Good to hear from Doron, as always. And one of the things I thought about when I was thinking back at 2012 was some of the bad points of 2012. We can't ignore those, can we? Kind of began in such a sour fashion as well, 2012, with Luis Suarez refusing to shake Patrice Evra's hand, and the whole kind of black mark, I thought, and that's not a pun intended there, on Liverpool's history. They, as a club, handled it so badly, and Kenny Dalglish's kind of bizarre rant and interview on TV afterwards, and the series of press releases the club put out, defending their player and attacking the FA, and the kind of bizarre conspiracy that they tried to create around the whole thing. And it wasn't a great start to the year, but I thought, United, by contrast, handled it really well. I'm not one to praise the management of United very often, but I thought there was a kind of very dignified way they handled what was an extremely controversial situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, a couple of people mentioned Evra's celebrations after the win at Old Trafford, the third leg in the trilogy, the third episode in the trilogy, the happy ending that we all wanted. That game against Liverpool was definitely my footballing lowlight of the year. Much worse than losing the league for me. Not because it was against Liverpool, but just because of the poisonous atmosphere. Lots and lots and lots of people being sort of hoodwinked by their institution into believing that somehow somehow their man had been wronged and that tribalism was what was important in that situation, when it so clearly wasn't, and the fact that the racist element of football support has unquestionably been empowered by the actions of both Liverpool and Chelsea, unfortunately, in this period of time. And there was a worrying little wobbly moment earlier when I thought Sir Alex Ferguson might be getting in on the action with the kick it out t-shirt stuff, but fortunately no, he backed down. He realised the bigger issue that was at stake, and he's not the most humble man in the world, is he, Fergie? But he handled that in quite a humble fashion, actually, I thought.
He did, and talking of disputes with Ferguson, Ravel Morrison left in 2012, a player that we spoke about on many occasions on this pod, with great hope, and in the few sort of moments he had with United mainly in Carling Cup and FA Cup games, we thought there was something special about to happen there and didn't, and it's all gone kind of downhill for Ravel since he left West Ham. He's played once for the Hammers and then was shipped out to Birmingham City on loan, where he's actually getting some games.
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't agree with the assessment. It's all gone downhill for him, actually. I think it's on the ascent again. He seems to have settled in quite well at Birmingham. I think they're looking after him quite well. He's playing a lot of games and he's had at least one Man of the Match award, and, there's a lot of buzz around him at Birmingham because of that. So it does seem like he's perhaps fitting in somewhere, although, I do think, given his situation, it's probably unsustainable, given everything that he's done in the past. You can't imagine that that's suddenly going to turn around.
There's hope for him, and I hope somehow he does manage to turn his life around and make a success of his career, because his talent certainly demands it, even if the man and the attitude hasn't always. Really black mark on 2012 United's IPO in New York, and the Glazers kind of spun this one in early summer, and rumours of an IPO have been around for quite some time, but it became apparent that New York was the final destination, and the initial prospectus said that all the money raised would go to debt. In the end, about 60 million went to debt, and even more went to the Glazers' own personal fund.
Very grim and entirely unsurprising, really.
Completely unsurprising, and I suppose the summer purchases of Van Persie, Kagawa and Nick Powell did something to kind of quell any unrest about that one. We're now talking about an institution that is owned by, at least partly owned by, American shareholders, mostly owned by an American family who is lining their pockets with the loot that us United fans predominantly pay, and is now registered in the Cayman Islands, so we can't see any of the real details around the financial shenanigans, and it's not how it's supposed to be, I think, as a club. So that's definitely a black mark for 2012. Unlikely that much will change on that front in the coming year.
All right, so what are some of your highlights of 2012 then, Ed? Obviously we all know what the other big low light of 2012 was, but we don't need to spend any time on that. But let's take it in a slightly more uplifting direction as we hit the turn of the year. What were some of your highlights, and what are you looking forward to about 2013?
I suppose one of the real highlights is the resurgence in Ferguson's side. And I've come out fighting. That hasn't always been the case in dips in the cycle, and it is often a cycle, isn't it? And Ferguson's almost unique in managing to build and then tear down sides over and over again. And this time, he's really come out fighting, and it's all-out attack from United. And it isn't always going to be successful, because the defensive side is very important. We'll see whether those two excellent defensive performances against West Brom and Wigan are carried on through the rest of the season, but it's been a highlight to see so many goals from United and such an attacking response to Manchester City's rise to the top of the English game.
It's sort of unique, really. It's been a long time since Fergie came out just absolutely swinging haymakers as a way of combating the slide. And you're right, it's a very quick change in the cycle. I don't think I expected this. And not to bang on about it, although, in fact, I'm just going to bang on about it. The signing of Van Persie is absolutely instrumental in that. That's the reason. I know there's lots of structural reasons why we're so much more attacking, but I think the fact that Van Persie's there has just made absolutely all the difference to speeding it up. A lot of talk from Mancini of how he was trying to buy Van Persie and thought it was almost done and all that sort of thing, and you just dread to think it would just be a very different picture, I think, now if they'd signed him instead of us.
You've got to drink it in and enjoy the fact that for once City were not out-muscled, because it wasn't about money, was it? Van Persie really wanted to join the club, and that's one of the reasons why he's been endeared to United. But it had to be that way, otherwise City would have got him and they'd be streaking away at the top of the Premier League right now if that had been the case in an alternate universe. Of course, part of that kind of cycle in the Manchester United squad was Dimitar Berbatov leaving in 2012. A sad day. There's a tear brought to many an eye, I think, and not just for the personality in the man and the talent he's got, but for a talent unfulfilled, perhaps. Didn't quite provide everything we thought he could, but hey, we'll always have that moment against West Ham.
Yeah, and Anton Alfie had that as one of his favourite moments of the year because he was a truly divisive figure. Lots of, the general narrative around him is that he was sort of beloved by Man United fans, a certain strain of United fans, but loads of real, actual vitriol towards Berbatov for consideration that he is genuinely lazy and overrated and all those things that I'm not sure are true, but people definitely feel them. And we will always have that move against West Ham, and we will always have that hat-trick against Liverpool, which, is one of the finest moments of the last few years. And it was sad to see him go, but also in a way not, because it's good to have him playing every week and looking happier, although he did reveal an absolutely awful Keep Calm and Pass to Me t-shirt the other day, which knocked his stock down a few pegs. 2013 then, things that you're looking forward to. I must say, just watching Van Persie every week and absolutely really hopeful that he doesn't get injured and also that Raphael doesn't get injured because it's been a delight to see him. I'm looking forward to the concept that Antonio Valencia might find some form again, which you could definitely see happening, and lots of people mentioning his goal against Blackburn as well as a truly fantastic moment of 2012. It seemed like it was all going to happen, but to me, I don't know, to isolate that moment out, it's difficult because it didn't come to anything. I think if we had won the league, then yeah, that would feel a lot different. So what are you looking forward to next year, Ed? This year?
Trophy number 20. Well, English title number 20. It's got to happen, hasn't it now?
No, it might happen. Yeah, I'm still not there in terms of confidence. 7 points clear at Christmas. Last time we were 8 points clear in April,
I'm looking forward to see how Angelo Henriquez does at Wigan. We talk transfers in a little bit, but I think that could be really interesting. He looks like a really talented young man to me. Always hard when you're talking about young players to predict a really big future, but here's one who could have it. Looking forward to having a summer with no international football and all our players get to have a break. Going on an extensive worldwide tour with Manchester United mega bucks.
Yeah, that'll be good. No, seriously though, apart from the prospect of winning title number 20, is there anything else you think looks nice on the horizon?
Looks, maybe, just maybe, that Tom Cleverley is turning into the central midfielder that we always hoped Ferguson would get and buy over the last 5 years. Maybe. It's hard to say just yet. He's got to keep fit. He's got to keep putting in those performances. I'm looking forward to watching the Michael Carrick metronome for the next 4 or 5 months. Outstanding, again, I thought, against West Brom. Really good performance. I thought it was man of the match, actually.
Worth pointing out as well that the public narrative about Michael Carrick appears to be shifting. 2 weeks in a row, Shearer did a little bit of analysis on Match of the Day about him, and Gary Neville picked him in his team of the season so far, and that kind of underrated player hipster football appreciation past statistic type player seems to be slightly changing, and actually his true value to United seems to be becoming more public knowledge, which is interesting to see.
His performances have been outstanding for United over the past year. 2012 was a really good campaign for him. I mean, especially the first half of 2012, I suppose. And he's a key member of United's side right now. Still only 31, so got plenty of years left. Not as if he relies on his pace. Not much of it there, but he uses that brain really well. And he's going to be really, really key to United. I think part of that narrative you talk about is that the big occasions on which United have failed, I suppose, in the last few years, those 2 Champions League finals against Barcelona, and he was so completely and totally dominated by Barcelona on those 2 occasions that really does stick in the mind, and I think that's affected a lot of United fans. It's definitely affected the wider perception because that was the biggest possible stage and he failed completely. But in terms of his general performances, he's been outstanding for United recently.
And it's nice to see. And he'll always have detractors, and part of the reason he'll always have detractors is because there's an over-defensiveness about Carrick because he's had so much unfair criticism that some of the people who are Team Carrick get a little bit carried away. He does have flaws. He's not the perfect all-round midfielder. He's not as good as Roy Keane empirically, but at recycling possession and absolutely devastating assist in the Newcastle game, just beautiful passing of the ball and as you say, metronomic.
Talking to Michael Carrick's detractors, nothing wrong with detractors. Just not as fast as those baby Bentleys those footballers like.
Oh, I'm upset now, Ed. You've upset me. Something that has upset some people and not others is Sir Alex Ferguson saying that he's not going to retire all over again. What do you reckon, Ed? What's he said? What?
I think when he's in the grave, in his box, and they're burying him, he'll be banging on the lid going, just give me 2 more years. I promise in 2 more years I'll retire. Has this upset people? I don't know. I wonder why he even bothers commenting on it at all, because he said so many times. I think he said in the 2008 Champions League final, I won't last any more than 3 years, no chance. And then he said something similar a couple of years ago, and there's that whole anecdote about Bobby Robson's 70th birthday. He stood up and said there's absolutely no chance he'll be still managing when he's 70. Well, he's 71 now, and he's still going, and he has no ideas about retiring. So it seems. Oh, maybe it's a big smokescreen, and he'll call it quits and middle of May after the Premier League has finished.
He's been winding up all and sundry, including English television presenter royalty Anton Deck, who tweeted that I believe it was Deck, so it was signed with a D. They share a Twitter account. What's up with that? It'd be like me and you sharing a Twitter account. They've tweeted that they lost respect for Sir Alex Ferguson, and man, it's going to be tough for the boss to sleep after that one.
It really is. I mean, they're wee men who support a wee club, aren't they?
It is a very dismissive thing to say, and he said it because Alan Pardew really got his goat. And it's interesting that Fergie said, he forgets all the help I've given him, and it's clearly that sense of if you're in Fergie's club, then you're all right, but if you step outside Fergie's club, you're going to get both barrels. And the wee club in the North East wasn't really meant as a dig at Newcastle. I don't think it was mostly a dig at Alan Pardew.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pardew's fair game, especially, just a massive hypocrite. How can he possibly go on about Ferguson having to go at the referee when he, tried to push a linesman over? So, and then thought it was a great big joke and really funny. So, no, he's one man who has absolutely no moral high ground when it comes to berating referees. And by the way, Ferguson was pretty emotional, as he put it, in talking to Mike Dean and the officials in the Newcastle game. But yeah, disrespectful about Newcastle. That was unnecessary. I don't mind him taking Pardew down a peg or two because, Pardew's in a job that's too big for him, and we're talking about Newcastle and they're a wee club, quote unquote.
It's interesting because you said, when we were talking about Fergie in the media, as long as it stays on the right side of ridiculous, then the press story won't be mockery. And then pretty much the day after that, there was a back page headline in the Daily Mirror which had him photoshopped in the middle of a Christmas cracker and, just his head in the middle of a pulled cracker. And it said, Christmas crackers, Fergie goes off on Pardew. It was interesting that the media story, it did cross the line into just making fun of Alex Ferguson. But then now we leave this Christmas period and we're 7 points clear at the top of the league. We've performed extremely well. He's managed the rotation pretty much perfectly, and the media pressure that would have been on after Rooney's poor performance at Swansea never materialised. It's just been all Fergie all the time. It's been a pretty triumphant couple of weeks. You only gave him 7 out of 10 for the first half of the season, but I wonder if that would have been bumped up by half a point if you'd made those scores today.
I don't do half points, so Paul.
I think he deserves an 8 now. I didn't disagree with your 7 then, but I think he might have bumped it up one.
Talking of ridiculous, the transfer market has opened and Liverpool are the big first players, spending £12 million on Chelsea reserve Daniel Sturridge. That's to go with the £15 million they spent on Jordan Henderson, the $20 million they spent on Downing, and countless other millions on other highly mediocre players.
I can't believe you haven't singled out the greatest of all millions on mediocre English players, Ed.
Well, yeah, he's not even their player anymore, really, He's currently being mediocre at West Ham.
And for no money. Yeah, £35 million for Andy Carroll makes all other transfers that Liverpool do look like majestic value, but I don't think this is a terrible transfer. I think he'll complement their style quite effectively. It's good for Sturridge because he's not getting in that Chelsea side because he's not good enough for them. They've definitely overpaid, but you do overpay for English club to English club transfers, especially in January. You could argue that we've overpaid for Van Persie, even though the quality is obviously we've way underpaid, but given his age profile and injury history profile, we've spent a lot of money on him. It's working out for now.
Oh, yeah, but, you'd rather overpay for the very, very best than for not very much. Of course, some business done by United already in the transfer window. Angelo Henriquez gone to Wigan on a 6-month loan, as I mentioned already, young Chilean player. Big hopes for him. I think that'll do him a world of good, and probably won't play every week at Wigan, but he's got a good manager there, and we've seen what happened with Tom Cleverley, so lots of hope that that'll work out for him and for Wigan and for United. And Joshua King, gone to Blackburn Rovers. Now, there's a club that's well run. Not going to go pear-shaped at all, that transfer.
Bit sad, really, isn't it, that he's ended up there? Player that people that watch the youth team hold in very high esteem. It's a sort of shame that he's gone to Blackburn, but I guess they'll play him every week, probably, won't they? And
he's had 3.5 years at United and didn't make the breakthrough, so, probably the right time for him and all parties to move on, I think. Blackburn's an odd choice, but, they seem to like him. He's been there on loan, scored a couple of goals in 8 appearances, so, he's doing all right. Still time for him to make a good career, I think. Already a goal scorer at international level, of course.
Yeah, absolutely, and best of luck to him. Bebe's shipped out to Rio Avenue. He's gonna rock down to Rio Avenue, and then he'll shank his cross wide.
Yeah, they're actually a half-decent Portuguese side in the upper third of the Portuguese league there, so we'll see if he plays or not. I think they're just hoping he does okay enough that they can shift him on permanently in the summer and just forget about that whole sordid business.
Very, very, very strange. Every time you think about it, it doesn't ever get any less strange. And we're not going to buy anyone, are we? 60 million plus Nani and De Gea for Ronaldo aside, of course.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen, of course, yeah, definitely. Yeah, a couple of days before the Champions League tie with them, sure. No, it doesn't look like it, There's been loads of talk about Herrera, the Mexican midfielder, young Mexican sort of defensive player. Seems that it's a bit of a bidding war on, following some people who know Mexican football well. His club are seeking a large fee for him, and we'll see whether United go for that one. Or, in kind of European terms, it's still not going to be that much money. Lots of talk about Strootman. Don't think that one will happen either. From what I've seen of him, I'm not really sure that he's actually good enough, although I can't confess to watch the Dutch league every week. And I suspect that Chelsea and City and it seems Liverpool will be the big spenders of the transfer window. They're the people that really need to strengthen. United have got the numbers in the right place, and unless Ferguson's going to go and spend 30 million on a really, really top-class central midfielder, there's not a lot of need to strengthen in other positions right at the moment.
No, absolutely couldn't agree more. I think in the long term we definitely have to do something about the left-back situation, because if Patrice gets injured then we really are in a bit of trouble there, because Butner doesn't look to be of that calibre really. But yeah, apart from that in central midfield we're alright everywhere. Looks like Chelsea might sign Demba Ba. That seems to be percolating right now as we speak. It would probably be done by the time you hear this maybe. Obviously phenomenal value given his contract at Newcastle. But there is this ongoing thing that Tony Pulis once described his knee as a ticking time bomb. So interesting to see whether that is affecting why he hasn't gone somewhere sooner. But I mean, you'd rather have Demba Ba in your squad than Daniel Sturridge, wouldn't you? Especially you're going to be in the black on those two deals as well.
Well, right, although the financial situation isn't as clear-cut as it seems, because Demba Ba's people want a lot of money and there's a loyalty bonus to be paid. That'll probably be paid not by Newcastle, by Chelsea, so I think the whole deal, plus his wage demands are pretty hefty, so the whole deal is going to cost Chelsea quite a lot of money, but, it's chump change, isn't it, for Abramovich? He can find 10 or 12 million pounds down the back of his sofa and not worry about it, so he's a really good addition to their squad. They've not got a lot of striking resources. I mean, Sturridge barely ever played in a centre-forward position anyway, so Chelsea are going to lose nothing there and gain a real alternative to Fernando Torres, or, potentially a partner, but I think probably more likely an alternative. And good move for Barry, he'll make loads of money out of it, and, if his knee does pop, he'll still make loads of money out of it, so,
yeah.
Winners all round. Talking to Sturridge, cracking quote this one, love this one. Sturridge can be as good as Falcao. This is from Rock Meltdown, which is, as at Yolki_ said on Twitter, a real gift today. Brilliant stuff from Rock Meltdown.
It's like when Steven Gerrard, not Rock Meltdown, but actual Steven Gerrard, said that Joe Cole could do anything that Lionel Messi could do.
Another one on Rock Meltdown. Barini, Suarez and Sturridge, easily the best front three in the Premier League.
Yeah, talking of stupid things on Twitter, I think it was Ollie Holt that said if he had to combine the United and City strike force, he would take Rooney, RVP, Tevez and Aguero. really, are you all right out there on that limb? You know, it looks pretty shaky on that limb, that crazy leap of fantasy you've just made.
Yeah, of course you can't call Ollie Holt anymore. He's Alice to friends.
Of course. I guess that just leaves us with a preview of the West Ham game. It's always weird, the FA Cup fixture after the Christmas period, because like everyone's lives return to normal, everyone goes back to work and all that sort of stuff, and then the sort of glorious football every other day thing stops, and it's always a bit of a bump to hit a bit of a speed bump in the season to hit an FA Cup tie. But I've decided one of my this season's resolutions, I'm going to try and enjoy the FA Cup as much as I can, so hope we have a little good run in it. But it's going to be a tough tie, it's going to be lots of rotation, and frankly, if we're not competing in the FA Cup, it's not the end of the world, is it?
That's the take on the FA Cup that Ferguson has had over the years, of course. You know, he's often rotated. Now, I'm quite sure he's going to rotate heavily for West Ham, and quite a few fringe players that haven't had a lot of time this season will play. You know, I'm sure we'll see Lindegaard. I'm sure we'll see Welbeck. Probably Bootner, because Evra played every minute of the Christmas period. You know, that's how much they run him into the ground. You know, I'm sure if Chris Smalling and Phil Jones are fit, they'll both play too. Maybe we'll get to see some more Kagawa because he needs the minutes. 8, 9, maybe 10, 11 changes for that game. It's going to be a tough game for United as a result. Hard to predict a comfortable win for United, not as if West Ham are playing particularly well at the moment, but loads of changes. I'd really like to see United win the FA Cup again. You know, it's coming up on 9 years. So it's not good enough, I think, for a club like, you know, this is the oldest organised football tournament in the world, and you know, United should be having a crack at it, I think, and it is obviously well down the list of priorities, of course, but kind of a shame that we haven't been to a final in a while.
We do maybe have the squad though this time round, I think. We do, you know, we've got so many options that I think, provided he does it right, it's not impossible. I think it all depends on that Madrid tie, doesn't it? If we're really competing in Europe, it's going to be very difficult to do it on all three fronts. But, you know, it's that whole 1999 four strikers thing. It's not impossible.
Not impossible, and also I think it depends on who we draw in the rounds, you know, and when they come. It really, really, really does. Not just in terms of the quality, but whether Ferguson can afford to rotate the resources and United playing weaker sides, and then if it gets to the semi-final stage, then he can play the big guns.
Yeah, absolutely. West Ham, they're comfortable in the Premier League, so I would imagine they'll be putting a lot of resources into trying to beat us. I wouldn't imagine there'll be much rotation at West Ham. They'll want to win this, won't they?
I'm quite sure. You know, it's the cup final, isn't it? Or third round. Yeah, absolutely. They definitely will. You know, I just remember when United went there in the Carling Cup a couple of years ago, and they were massively up for it then as well. You know, it's United in town. It's their derby, isn't it? So many clubs appear to think that they are rivals to United. You know, it's not, but some pretty bad experiences by United at Upton Park over the years. Let's hope this isn't one. I have a kind of feeling that United might just sneak this one.
I've got the sort of opposite feeling. I'm going to predict. I think I might predict a 2-1 win to West Ham. I think after the masterful rotation of the Christmas period, there'll be a slight over-rotation, and we might pay the price for that.
Well, fair enough. You know, it's hard to say that's a crazy prediction or anything. I'm going to go for 2-1 to United. I'm not predicting clean sheets anymore because that's a failed strategy. And when I predict goals in at the wrong end, then we come up with clean sheets.
So, sorry about my voice this week. If you want to contribute to the medical fees, then it's unitedrant.co.uk/donate. If you want to get in touch with either me or Ed, I'm at UTDRantcast on Twitter. Ed is at UnitedRant. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/UnitedRant. You can also leave a comment on the show page or a review on iTunes. By this time next week, hopefully, I'll sound like a normal human being again.
Yeah, you've got to get rid of that bad AIDS, Paul. It's not good for the soul or the body.
I've got the Fletcher.
You got the Fletcher, yeah. Well, it took sick boy an awful long time to come back. He's not really made it back into the United first team. I kind of suspected that'd be the case. I'm sure he'll play against West Ham, and that'll be nice to see. Been great talking to you again this week. I think we can look back on a very fruitful Christmas period. Great to hear from all the lads that we met at the weekend.
And ladies.
And ladies, yeah, you know, lads is all-encompassing term in football, isn't it?
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm really, really excited at the turn of the year for what this year ahead's going to bring for United, because whether we win or lose, it's clearly going to be fun, and that makes a huge difference. I don't think we felt like that at the turn of the year last year.
It really does make a difference, you know. I think people are an awful lot more forgiving of United's failings with entertainment, and this side is definitely giving us entertainment at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all this talk of the far-flung future aside, we'll be back next week, and I look forward to talking to you then, Ed.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.